All fiction has to be as honest as you can make it. This, I believe.
Multiple women have alleged Coraline and the Sandman author Neil Gaiman sexually assaulted them.
This is going to be a slightly different video than my usual. I'm honestly still a little conflicted about this topic and originally just wanted to do a YouTube short to address it. But the more I've thought about it, the more complex my thoughts got, and
fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
I'm not going to be addressing the allegations or sharing my opinion on if Gaiman committed these atrocities. I'm leaving that to the courts and the universe to sort out. But what I do want to talk about is the end of Good Omens, the cancellation of the Graveyard Book, and all these other works. How will canceling these impact society, and what should we consider when picking up a copy of Gaiman's work? And supplementarily, if Gaiman committed these acts, where did he get his power from? Lastly, does supporting art mean supporting the person? First, let's address my own bias in the situation. In my second video discussing the fracture of society when we overmerge politics and art, I referenced Art Matters by Neil Gaiman himself. I've debated editing that section out, but have since decided against it because I still feel the ideas in that segment hold true.
I believe I have the right to think and say the wrong things. I believe your remedy for that should be to argue with me or to ignore me, and that I should have the same remedy for the wrong things that I believe you think. I believe that you have the absolute right to think things that I find offensive, stupid, preposterous, or dangerous, and that you have the right to speak, write, or distribute these things. You probably think some of my ideas are pretty vile too. I believe that in the battle between guns and ideas, ideas will, eventually, win. Because the ideas are invisible, and they linger, and sometimes they can even be true.
I still find these words to be powerful. They still inspire me. But what does that mean if the allegations are true? Does that make the idea itself monstrous? And if not, does continuing to promote these ideas somehow promote evil? It's a messy idea loop with no real end in sight, one I find myself wrestling with. I hold nothing against Netflix or Disney for hitting the pause button on their adaptations. These are business moves meant to distance themselves from the controversy while the dust settles. I rather doubt it's for moral reasons because, well, I trust any large business about as far as I can toss it. But I still respect a practical business decision for what it is. Where I think we as people get stuck is considering the final season of Good Omens or in reading Gaiman's work with our kids. Do we even keep his books? I personally love Coraline. The movie and the book are fantastic dark fairy tales that I love sharing with my son. And not unlike many of you, I found myself wondering if I should be reading these with him. Could this somehow teach him to worship the ideas of a foul creature? If Gaiman did these horrible acts over all these years, it's in part because of his fan base and the power we gave him. Is it okay to continue giving him our mental space and time? I'm not particularly religious, but even I find it a little creepy how we get so obsessed with celebrities and artists. It's to the point of idyllic worship. Even if they don't do something this horrendous, we are giving them power. There's this idea that gods of old pantheons needed worship to survive. Without it, they would wither and die. I kind of think the power of celebrities and politicians is much the same. Celebrities are like the Greek pantheon, flawed and capable of both great acts of kindness and despicable evil. If Gaiman did these things, he was able to get away with it for a long time. Even at the beginning of his controversy, news and social media suppressed the story, and that's because of the power we gave him. Even something as simple as stating the wrong opinion, and I'm just going to trust all of you to see the oxymoronic nature of that phrase, can tear our worlds to pieces, giving some of us such a blind hatred we might consider doxing or even threatening someone. But why? Why do we give these public figures so much sway over our mental health and well-being? This is the same principle being applied to historically acclaimed works by Roald Dahl or Dr. Seuss. Don't even get me started on trying to look at history with a modern lens. I understand art impacts us. That's my job as an author. Even if my silly little vampire mysteries only entertain you, that's an impact. And I'll freely admit that reading Art Matters on a bad day still makes me tear up. In fact, I reread it just to prep myself for this very video. And the experience is tainted by these allegations. But that didn't make the ideas any less moving. I'll still encourage others to read and engage with the work. And I could never bring myself to throw out or even sell the book. But do I keep buying Gaiman's books? Do I keep reviewing them on Goodreads? Do I share these stories with my son? At what point does this become condoning the actions of a monster? In the end, I've decided to keep reading these stories and watching these movies. Because, as a friend recently reminded me, the art is not the artist. And more importantly, we need to stop worshiping these artists as gods and seek heroes a little closer to home. As for purchasing the books, well, used bookstores always need some love. But I don't have the answers. I don't have some grand bit of evidence to share. I want your thoughts below. If Gaiman did these things, do we have a responsibility to avoid his art? And hey, if you want something new to read, scan this QR code for the first 4 chapters of my Vampire Buddy Cop mystery series completely free, or head over to my channel for the audiobook. Just remember, myself and every other author you'll ever read are ultimately human. That's what makes art important, beautiful, and precious. Happy reading.